Let's start with the ones that merely bankrupted cities and slowly work our way towards the ones that actually changed laws in countries. Number 6, the San Francisco Millennium Tower, 2009, $1 billion and counting. Here's what you need to know. Luxury high-rise, 58 stories, opened with champagne and skyline views that cost millions per unit, and then it started tilting. Not like, oh, the picture frame is crooked. We're talking 18 inches of sinking and 14 inches of lean. That's what she said. The building is literally falling over in slow motion, and everyone inside is watching their net worth evaporate in real time. The failure? Foundation. They built this tower on soft soil without anchoring it to bedrock. Bedrock was right there, they just didn't use it. Why? Cost savings. Real good job, guys. They gambled that the soil compaction would hold. It didn't. Now the fix involves drilling massive piles deep into the earth while people are still living in the building, and every inch of correction costs millions. Residents are suing, the city's involved, engineers are pointing fingers, and the tower keeps tilting. Here's the kicker. This is happening in San Francisco. Earthquake Central, a city that knows better than anywhere else in America what happens when you ignore geology. And yet someone looked at soft soil, looked at bedrock, looked at the budget, and said, nah, we're good. Number 5, the Montreal Olympic Stadium. 1976, $1.6 billion when you factor in 30 years of debt payments. They called it the Big Owe, not a typo. That's its actual nickname, because Montreal taxpayers were still paying off the construction debt in 2006, 3 decades after the Olympics ended. The centerpiece was supposed to be this retractable roof. Revolutionary design, architectural marvel. It never worked. The roof tore. Multiple times. It collapsed under snow. It leaked. Eventually they just gave up and installed a permanent roof, which kind of defeats the entire purpose of spending extra hundreds of millions on a retractable one. But the real story is the timeline. They rushed the build to meet the Olympic deadline, corners were cut, materials were swapped, quality control became quality suggestion. And when the games actually happened, the stadium wasn't even finished. The tower that was supposed to hold the roof cables, completed 11 years later. 11 years. This is what happens when you let a mega event deadline override engineering reality. You get a stadium that worked for exactly 2 weeks, an Olympics that bankrupted a city, and a 30-year payment plan that turned a sports venue into a generational curse. Number 4, the Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. 2020, $8 billion in overruns. Took 14 years to open. 14. The airport that was supposed to symbolize German efficiency became an international punchline. Here's how you screw up an airport. Step 1, hire too many planners, give them all veto power, let them change the design 17,000 times. Step 2, install a fire safety system so complex that nobody can figure out how to make it actually work. Step 3, discover that the cables are too short, the escalators are the wrong size, and the smoke extraction system would actually trap people in a fire instead of saving them. Step 4, open during a global pandemic when nobody's flying anyway. The wiring issues alone shut down construction for years. Not months, years. Because every time they thought they fixed it, they'd test the system, and something else would catch fire or fail inspection. Meanwhile, the old airport kept running, and every major airline started avoiding Berlin entirely because nobody knew when or if the new one would ever function. Brandenburg became a symbol, not of progress, but of what happens when bureaucracy strangles execution, when oversight becomes paralysis, and when a project gets so big that nobody's actually in charge anymore. Number 3, the Deepwater Horizon oil rig, Gulf of Mexico, 2010, $65 billion. 11 people dead, 87 days of oil pouring into the ocean, 40,000 square miles of contamination, and a company that will spend the rest of its existence tied to one of the worst environmental disasters in modern history. This one's pure negligence. The blowout preventer, the device that's supposed to stop exactly this kind of catastrophe, failed. Why? Because BP ignored the safety tests that showed it wasn't working. They had warnings. They had data. They had engineers telling them to stop, and they drilled anyway because stopping meant losing money and time. When the rig exploded, the failsafe didn't. The cement barriers didn't hold. The backup systems didn't kick in. And for nearly 3 months, millions of barrels of crude oil turned the Gulf into a toxic slick that killed wildlife, destroyed fishing industries, and poisoned coastlines for years. The legal battle was biblical. Settlements, fines, criminal charges. BP's stock collapsed. The offshore drilling industry got overhauled. New regulations were written in the blood of 11 workers and the corpses of 100,000 sea creatures. And here's the thing. This wasn't a freak accident. This was a known risk that got ignored because the schedule mattered more than the safety checklist. That's the pattern. That's what keeps showing up. Number 2, Chernobyl, Ukraine, 1986. $235 billion in cleanup, health costs, and economic damage. Not millions, not tens of billions. 235 billion. And that's a conservative estimate. You already know the explosion. Reactor 4, flawed Soviet RBMK design that was unstable at low power. Operators running a safety test, ironically, that spiraled into a meltdown because the reactor had a fatal design flaw and the control systems couldn't compensate fast enough. The explosion blew the roof off, sent radioactive material into the atmosphere, contaminated an area the size of a small country. 54,000 people evacuated from Pripyat, exclusion zone that's still off limits 40 years later, long-term health effects that are still killing people today. But here's what makes Chernobyl different from every other disaster on this list. It was a combination of bad design, human error, and a government that lied about it. For days, the Soviets didn't tell anyone, not their own citizens, not neighboring countries. Radiation drifted across Europe, and the USSR just stayed silent until Sweden detected the fallout and demanded answers. The cleanup involved liquidators, guys who were sent into radioactive zones with minimal protection to shovel debris and pour concrete. Hundreds of thousands of them. Many died, many more got sick, and the sarcophagus they built over the reactor is already deteriorating, so they had to build another structure over that one. Chernobyl didn't just kill people. It killed trust in nuclear energy for an entire generation. It poisoned land that will be dangerous for 20,000 years. And it proved that when you cut corners on something this dangerous, the cost isn't just financial, it's existential. Number 1, Boston's Big Dig, 1991 to 2007, $24 billion. Started as a $2.8 billion highway project, ended as the most expensive highway project in American history, and nearly bankrupted the city of Boston. This was supposed to fix Boston's traffic problem by moving the elevated highway underground. Simple concept, impossible execution. The tunnels leaked. Ceiling panels collapsed and killed a woman in her car. The project uncovered contaminated soil that nobody planned for. Contractors cut corners. Inspectors were bribed, and the timeline kept stretching while the budget exploded. Here's the anatomy of the disaster. Tunnels built in one of the most complex urban environments in America, under active roads, next to historic buildings, through landfill and waterlogged soil. Every time they dug, they found something new to deal with. Utility lines, foundations, groundwater. And instead of stopping to reassess, they just kept going, patching problems as they appeared, bleeding money the entire time. The leaks were the most visible failure. Water seeping through tunnel walls faster than they could seal them. Millions spent on waterproofing that didn't work, and then the ceiling collapsed in 2006. A woman driving through the tunnel, concrete panels fell, crushed her car, killed her instantly. Investigation found that the adhesive holding the panels failed. The adhesive, something that basic. But the real cost wasn't the $24 billion, it was the opportunity cost. Every dollar spent on the Big Dig was a dollar. Boston couldn't spend on schools, transit, housing, infrastructure that actually needed it. The project became a black hole that swallowed budgets and political careers. And here's the twist, it kinda worked. The traffic did improve. The city reconnected neighborhoods that the old elevated highway had split apart. The Big Dig, for all its failures, did deliver some of what it promised. But at what cost? Was it worth $24 billion and a death? That's the question every one of these failures forces you to ask. When does ambition cross the line into recklessness? When does cost-cutting become criminal negligence? And who pays when it all goes wrong? The pattern is clear. Every single one of these disasters shares the same DNA. Rushed timelines, ignored warnings, sacrificed safety for budget or schedule, complexity that nobody fully understood until it was too late, and a failure to ask the one question that could have saved billions in lives. What happens if we're wrong? Boston's Big Dig taught the engineering world that urban tunneling at that scale is possible, but only if you're willing to accept that the budget is a lie and the timeline is fiction. Chernobyl proved that nuclear energy requires a level of precision and honesty that Soviet bureaucracy couldn't provide. Deepwater Horizon showed that corporate pressure will override safety until someone makes it more expensive to ignore the warnings than to follow them. Berlin's airport revealed that too many stakeholders with no clear leadership turns a construction project into a committee that can't agree on which way is up. Montreal's stadium is a case study in Olympic hubris, and San Francisco's tower is a reminder that geology always wins. These 6 failures cost over $300 billion combined. They killed people, destroyed ecosystems. bankrupted cities, and every single one was preventable. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on screen now.